for like defensive fighters, like a Floyd Mayweather, and they can sense weakness, they sense the fatigue or the opening, and they go into attack mode, and they leave themselves a little vulnerable to get hit back. But you can sense the great fighters. It's all about you're sensing the weakness of your opponent, and then you attack quickly, get out. That's where Chris Paul is. Like, this is attack mode for Chris. Chris Paul, the distributor, last 2 games has become Chris Paul, the scorer. Last 2 games, 37, 36 points, 9 assists. He's gotten hyper-aggressive. And I think Chris Paul knows this, because Chris Paul knows Chris Paul better than all of us do. This is the perfect moment for Phoenix. It will not look just like this next year. And let me explain. It's a young team. They're hungry. They're listening. All right? They needed Chris. None of them have a title. None of them have big money. If the Suns win the title, you all get the temperature in the room changes. It's called the disease of more, Pat Riley. A little more credit, a little more money, a little more. It's very human. Go ask the Chicago Cubs. They won the championship with all these young players. The World Series came back the next year. They were good. Everybody took a little more credit for it. That's my World Series. Everybody wanted a little more money. The Cubs were good. Didn't quite have that hunger. If Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton win a championship, you think they want to get barked at as much by Chris Paul? Chris wears out everybody. He's got a little Jim Harbaugh in him. It's good early. This football team needs Harbaugh. We need his guidance. We are young. He is tough on us. After about 3 years of Jim Harbaugh, you're like, all right, we won. We won a Rose Bowl. We got to the Super Bowl. I'm tired of Jim Harbaugh yelling at me. That's Chris Paul's personality. The temperature in the room changes. And I mean, Anthony Davis won a title. The following year, he's not the same player. The idea that it should be the same Suns team, they won't be as young. They'll have more confidence. They'll have hit big shots. They'll have a ring. Everybody in Phoenix tell them all day, you the man. Now you're not quite as willing to every day get the bark from Chris. It's okay. So there's an argument to be made. Chris Paul is the president of the Players Association. He's not taking a pay cut. When Drew Brees was the president of the Players Association, he wasn't taking pay cuts. When he wasn't the president, I'll take a pay cut, right? So Chris isn't going to take a pay cut. Not saying he should. I'm saying he won't. A lot of guys in the NBA, there's a lot of Chris Bosh's, D. Wade's have said, I'll take a little less. Kevin Durant taking a little less. Chris isn't going to do that. Chris wants 4 years because he's 36 and he has a history of injuries. Same reason AD signed a 5-year deal with the Lakers. I've been hurt. I want my money. I would do the same thing. But there's an argument to be made. If Chris wants 4 and that's what he's going to demand, you sell the stock. Like, you won a championship. Our future is Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton and Mikal Bridges. That's the future. We'll always be able to supplement that with the Jay Crowders of the world. And I know everybody said, media always does this. You got to let them run it back. No, you don't. They don't. You do not do that. What Tampa's doing in the NFL is almost unheard of, where everybody comes back. It's why I like the Chiefs to beat the Bucs this year. Tampa will not quite be as hungry. Young players got their money. That workout you cut short after an hour and a half, you don't go to 2. The disease of more. It's okay. It's real. We've seen the Cubs. I don't think the Buccaneers win the Super Bowl this year. I think the Chiefs do. Or Buffalo does. The workouts are longer. You stay longer for practice. And so I think there is an interesting time now. If Chris took 2 years, I'd sign him tomorrow. 3, I'd have a couple meetings. 4, I'd let him go. And I love Chris Paul. I'm Mr. Chris Paul guy. But there is an argument to be made. This is the perfect moment, and Chris totally understands. I'm a scorer now. Saw it against the Clippers. You see it against the Bucks. It's like, okay, I'm this far away now. I'm gonna take a few more shots now. I'm not letting anybody score. I'm gonna take a few more shots. Completely understandable. But you can ask the Cubs, and you go look back at these championship teams. This thing about you always gotta let them run it back. There are times when it all comes together and teams change. Joy with the news.
No.
Turn on the news. This is the Herdline News.
So the match was yesterday. Not quite the buzz that it had last year.
Well, it was a crowded day.
as a crowd today. We had literally no sports on last year. We were all watching it like it's like
Right.
Sunday the Masters. Well, Tom Brady has cemented himself as the GOAT of football, but the debate over who is the greatest athletes across all of sports continues. Charles Barkley was one of the commentators on the match yesterday and gave his opinion on the matter after Brady landed a nice shot on the green. He said he thinks Brady is the greatest athlete of all time, not just the greatest football player. Now, we've talked about this a lot, and I was actually thinking about this morning about what and how we find, like, we're never going to really find a common ground on this, but I think, like, when you have the conversation of who's the greatest athlete of all time, we have to decide what the criteria for that is. Like, and I mean, what do we all agree on? Nothing. But are football players the best athletes of sports?
Is he in the running for greatest team sport athlete of all time?
I think team sport is an important qualifier.
Yes, it is.
And then, one of the knocks on Brady has always been that he's not actually that athletic. Now, I think that's wildly unfair and exaggerated.
Well, he was drafted by a Major League Baseball team in high school, so he's pretty athletic.
Well, everyone points to his draft picture and his combine. And, I would argue also that, you can develop a little bit. But that's what's thrown out there when we're talking about how athletic he actually is. We'll probably never agree on what the criteria for this is. I think it's fair to say he is the greatest the greatest team athlete. But then, you have Jordan, who never lost in the finals. Like, the conversation is really never going to be agreed on. I think it's all just a matter of preference.
Well, the other thing is, like, greatest athlete. Like, if I said to you, greatest house in America, a lot of it would be, where's it located? Do I get a water and a sunset view? Do I have a big kitchen? Do I have some space for my animals? The greatest house isn't just, it's the biggest.
Right.
It's the, no, there's a lot of things you contextualize for, like, the greatest car isn't the fastest. I remember years ago when I was dumb, well, I still am, but I was in my 20s, I test drove a Porsche, and I'm like, I'm 6'2", and it's got no air conditioning. Everybody's like, I got a Porsche. I finally made money, and I'm like, I'm totally uncomfortable. I live in Vegas, and it has no air conditioning. This is a bad car. And so I bought, your typical mid-sized car that had great air conditioning, and I had space to put, kids or whatever. The whole point being is greatest athlete. Do we count leadership? Do we count your ability to inspire others?
And it can't be who has the most championships. Well, I guess in football he does, but certainly not in team sports.
Well, we always talk about Jordan. Bill Russell has 11 championships. Right. He won 11 in 13 years. The 2 years he didn't win, he was hurt. Or Bill Russell would have won 13 straight championships.
Exactly.
And Bill scored 19 a game. Best rebounder, best defender, a man's man. He would lead. Nobody screwed around with Bill Russell. And I was listening to an old NBA coach talk about him yesterday, and he's like, does everybody understand? When Bill was healthy, the Celtics won every championship. And Bill was so much beyond just the sky hook, flaky wilt, and his dunks. So what are we calling great here? Great, like Chris Paul's great. Part of it is he makes everybody on the floor better. Everybody. He had over 100 assists to 3 different Suns players
and
this
that
year.
Can't even be the qualifier because LeBron, I think, is the ultimate make everybody better guy, and he has championships and Chris Paul doesn't.
He's probably the greatest athlete. I'm not saying, but if you said who's the best athlete, LeBron absolutely could have been a star in the NFL, no question, star in the NBA.
But then, like, what is athleticism? Is a gymnast more athletic than a football player? Like, some may argue, yes, it requires more skill and body control and, like, core power just because, like, they might be smaller. So it really is just an absolute matter of preference. And then I actually think, like, that boxers and fighters should be considered some of the best athletes because you're doing all of this while also getting hit. I don't know.
How about the people, the heptathlon? What do you call that thing in the Olympics where you have to do pole vaulting, long jumping, sprinting distance?
Yeah.
That to me, I can do everything. That's essentially the world's greatest.
And then you win that, so you're like the best at doing
wasn't that
everything.
what
Bruce Jenner won? Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, he was the best athlete. He could do everything.
It's totally a matter of preference. But I think we can all agree he's the best quarterback of all time. So at least we can agree on that since we agree on nothing else. So Giannis missed 2 games after hyperextending his knee and was questionable heading into game 1 of the finals. He was able to play and put up 20 points with 17 rebounds and 4 assists. But he said he thought his season was over when the injury happened.
When I went down, I thought I'm going to be out for the year. I thought I'm going to I'm just happy that I'm out there, and I'm able to, help my teammate in any way possible, and participate in NBA Finals, my first NBA Finals.
I thought it was great.
Yeah, I thought he looked good. I mean, obviously he's not 100%,
Right.
but I thought he looked like he was. So if he's in pain, he's certainly hiding it well, and he's playing well enough. We're showing the block that he had last night, which was
It's so long.
amazing.